Show. It's great to connect with you through the I Love CVille Network. We have so much information to relay to you, more information than I could fit in the headlines on screen. We call it the rundown. I have a couple of programming notes I want to relay to you first. On tomorrow's program at 12:30 p.m., John Vermillion will be in studio. He's the president of Charlottesville Sanitary Supply on East High Street. His family owns that building on East High Street. His family's business, which is 3 generations strong, has 60 consecutive years of operational activity in this community. 60 straight years of running a business called Charlottesville Sanitary Supply. His father started the business 60 years ago. Right now, John's son, Andrew, is working in the business as the vice president of sales. They own a valuable piece of real estate, the family does, on East High Street, and their business has proudly served this community for 60 straight years. We were over there this morning having conversations with John, with Andrew, and his customer base. I was very impressed, almost heartwarmed by the conversation I saw with John and Andrew and their customers. It's so far from transactionary and so much more representative of friendship and human connection. Interesting tidbit I learned today. The sign outside Charlottesville Sanitary Supply is 70 years old. It was formerly the Brown's Dry Cleaners sign. And I believe he mentioned to us, we can weave Judah Wickhauer in, you were in that conversation as well. Was there a penguin on the Brown's Dry Cleaner sign?
Yeah, there was a penguin, and that was because they had a, cold coat storage?
Cold coat storage, specifically for furs.
Yeah.
So 70 years ago, where Charlottesville Sanitary Supply is now on East High Street, Brown's Dry Cleaners ran their operation. And Brown's Dry Cleaners, a service they provided the community, was storing expensive coats like furs and minks. Mm-hmm. And they would do it in cold storage. And on the sign on East High Street was a penguin, which was in some ways a call to action 70 years ago for wealthy members in the community who had expensive coats like furs and minks to store their coat in the off-season. Mm-hmm. Brown's Dry Cleaners then built a building across the street from Charlottesville Sanitary Supply and moved its operation. Brown's Dry Cleaners no longer in operation, I believe, right?
I don't think they are. They had 2 places, one across the street from Charlottesville Sanitary Supply and one over on Preston, right?
Yeah, and it closed, I believe, in 2018 abruptly. With 25 employees being kind of left in a lurch, a business Brown started in 1948. The programming note I want to highlight, John Vermillion is going to be in studio tomorrow. We're going to talk about what it's like to run a business for 60 straight years, to have 3 generations a part of the business.
Yeah.
We're also going to highlight what it's like to own and operate a business in Charlottesville City, the trials and tribulations, if it's gotten easier or more difficult to operate a business. This man is an encyclopedia of Charlottesville history and knowledge, John Vermillion. Yeah. Mark your calendars for 12:30 p.m. We're going to highlight the Small Business Person of the Year from the Charlottesville Regional Chamber of Commerce. One other programming note. UVA quarterback Matt Schaub, arguably one of the greatest quarterbacks in Virginia football history, is going to be in studio tomorrow at 10:15 a.m. for the Jerry and Jerry Show. Jerry Ratcliffe, the Virginia Sports Hall of Famer, lined up Matt Schaub, a Pro Bowl football player in the National Football League, the ACC Player of the Year, and arguably one of, if not the greatest quarterback in Virginia history, in studio tomorrow at 10:15 a.m. for the Jerry and Jerry Show. Fantastic day of content tomorrow on this network. Couple of other programming notes that we need to get to on today's talk show, and we will get to the headlines you see on screen. Georgia Gilmer says John Vermillion is awesome. Charlottesville Sanitary Supply rocks. Dude, I'm getting to know this business. It is absolutely a fantastic business, an institution-type business. Couple programming notes I need to get to that I couldn't fit on the rundown, though. On news.virginia.edu, the website that's branded UVA Today, there's a story that was published on October 24th about McDonald's, the Golden Arches. McDonald's is going through an E. coli breakout that's impacting their iconic quarter pounder with cheese hamburger. And in this article that was authored by Brian McKenzie, I used to work with Brian McKenzie at the Daily Progress. He was a columnist at the Daily Progress when I was working over at the newspaper. In this article, the headline, "Quick Response, Plain Talk, Help a Company Repair Its Reputation." I want to read 2 or 3 paragraphs from the UVA Today news.virginia.edu article, headline, "Quick Response, Plain Talk, Help a Company Repair Its Reputation." I'm going to read verbatim, and then I'm going to say this. After I read verbatim, Judah, I want you to give me immediately what you think about after I read these paragraphs, okay?
All right.
Verbatim, Brian McKenzie, UVA Today, Virginia, news.virginia.edu. When E. coli bacteria lurking in their quarter pounder hamburgers struck down McDonald's customers this week, the company immediately pulled the product off menus, released statements addressing the problem, and made executives available to the media. Those steps are exactly what the company needed to take to overcome the possible loss of reputation, trust, customers, according to a UVA expert. It's equally important to communicate with employees to maintain trust as well. I'm going to continue reading. Quote, "You've already seen the impact on the firm's stock price. How long the crisis continues can also determine the extent and potential negative impact on reputation, brand, and business," said Marcia Pence, an associate professor of commerce with the McIntyre School of Commerce. She continues, "With a firm such as McDonald's that is woven into the daily fabric of millions of customer lives, the need for the firm to explain its situation clearly to reduce uncertainty in customer minds is vital." They highlight in this article that McDonald's immediately communicated with customers, made its executives available to the media, and in plain talk spoke to the world about the problems that they were having. I go to you, Judah, and say, what immediately jumps out at you about this?
I mean, this is good advice for pretty much anyone in Charlottesville who's recently been in some type of a scandal or blow up.
PR crisis. Bingo, Judah Wickhauer. The first 4 or 5 paragraphs of this story on news.virginia.edu is advice or strategy that Jim Ryan or Dr. Matthew Haas should follow.
No doubt.
Plain talk, quick communication, making themselves readily available to the media. Jim Ryan is in a PR crisis of significant proportions. Again, one you can argue is a PR crisis that very few, if any, university and college presidents are facing currently in 2024. Dr. Matthew Haas, superintendent of Albemarle County Public Schools, is hiding behind lieutenants and middle management, vice principals and principals, offering 3 and 4 paragraph vaguely worded emails to parents about drug overdoses happening at high schools within the Albemarle County Public Schools. It wasn't until this talk show last week highlighted what was happening that Matthew Haas was forced to respond. I would encourage President Jim Ryan and Superintendent Dr. Matthew Haas to read the article on UVA Today about how McDonald's is managing an E. coli breakout from a public relations standpoint. It's a case study of what to do, rather what they are doing, which is what not to do. A perfect segue into our first headline. We'll give some props to Charlottesville Sanitary Supply for being a part of the program. 60 years on East High Street, Charlottesville Sanitary Supply, an institutional business in this community. And I'm going to ask you, the viewer and listener, their sign is 70 years old. Give me a sign in Charlottesville City, signage, a sign in Charlottesville City that is older than 70 years old. I would love to learn. Any viewer and listener, can you name a sign in Charlottesville City that is aged more than 70 years? I cannot think of one. Maybe it's the Paramount, Judah? Maybe you can research this. Put me on a one shot, and let's get to the top headline with the lower third on screen, if you could, please. I've heard from many parents about the drug problems that are happening at the high schools locally, including students. We have been told by parents and other classmates of these students, they are ODing in schools, being carted out on stretchers, taken by emergency rescue personnel and ambulances during school hours to hospitals like UVA's. One student, we've been told, allegedly has picked up desks and chairs, thrown them at other students after getting high at lunch, and then passing out to the ground, foaming at the mouth. Parents are scared, parents are terrified, and parents are asking, what the hell is going on? Interestingly, the response has also been from students, from classmates of those that have been high on drugs during school hours. They also have said, what is going on, and why is my educational experience being interrupted? We have found something terribly concerning about these turn of events. Students utilizing the lunch break to either leave school or distance themselves from accountability during school because they have the privilege of basically going unaccounted for an entire lunch hour or period. One mom in particular sent me the correspondence that she has had with principals within ACPS about the lunch break. There is a lunch release policy within Albemarle County Public Schools that allows 9th graders, 10th graders, 11th graders, and 12th graders the opportunity to leave school for the lunch period. Now, I am a parent of two, and as I highlighted last week on the show, the first to get in trouble when I was in high school. Often the ringleader of trouble when I was in high school. The opportunity to leave school as a senior was a privilege that was earned through good behavior. I have no problem with seniors in high school leaving for school if their report cards, their grades, and their behavior warrants it. I do, however, have a problem if 9th graders and 10th graders and 11th graders are being afforded the opportunity to leave. This parent who reached out to me said this: kids are pressuring their parents to sign waivers. These waivers are then submitted to the front office of a high school, and it gives the kids the permission to leave. Students are saying to their parents, all the other kids at my lunch table have this waiver signed. It's not like we're leaving we're just leaving the cafeteria, Mom and Dad, and we may eat outside. Please sign this, or I'm going to be the only kid at the lunch table. And I don't want to be the only kid in the cafeteria sitting at my table eating my Cool Ranch Doritos, my Lunchables, and my Ecto Cooler Hi-C juice box. So, 9th graders, 10th graders, and 11th graders pressuring their parents to sign waivers, often telling their parents, we're just leaving the cafeteria, and they're instead leaving the grounds altogether. I implore Albemarle County Public Schools, I implore the Albemarle County School Board, and I implore Superintendent Dr. Matthew Haas to reconsider the policy that allows underclassmen and 11th graders to leave school for their lunch break. My parents used to say this to me: nothing good happens after midnight. They would say that to me all the time when I was in high school. I would argue, what are you talking about? We're always good. Even if the clock's 11 o'clock or the clock's 1 o'clock, we're always good. Now that I'm a parent of two, they were exactly right. Nothing good happened to us after midnight. I'll use that as a segue to say this. Nothing good happens to unsupervised kids when they leave school grounds during their lunch break, in particular if they're 9th graders, 10th graders, and 11th graders. I am floored that a 9th grader and a 10th grader specifically can leave during school hours. This policy should be changed. Before we get to the Charlottesville Redevelopment and Housing Authority, Judah, I'll weave you in. I'll give some props to Mexicali Restaurant on West Main Street. Johnny Ornalis and River Hawkins have created a fantastic restaurant. Mexicali, Street Art Museum, cocktail bar, music venue, and Latin fusion cuisine. Ninth graders, 10th graders, and 11th graders leaving school grounds due to wick hour during the lunch break?
I mean, we know the reason why the school lets them do it, right? It was pretty much in the the information that we got, and you can't really fault them.
You can't fault them? I'm shocked that you're having this take. Go ahead.
We were essentially told that they have no choice. If a student if the student's parent gives them permission to leave during lunch hour, they can't stop them. And without what they're doing now, without giving out these permission forms and having parents sign them, what essentially was going on was that every day for lunch, they were getting bombarded by hundreds of phone calls from parents saying, let my kid go during lunch. So is the solution that we go back to that? Is the solution that we hire more people for the office so that they can field all those phone calls? Essentially, if a student's parent decides to call the school and request that they get lunch off, there's no way the school can stop them.
All right, I'll give some background to what
you're
saying. Succinct background here. Albemarle County Public Schools has issued a policy where students, regardless of grade, can leave for lunch at high school. And they're saying we have to do this because we had so many parents bombard our secretary and our principal's office with calls to allow their kids to leave. We could not manage it. And because we couldn't manage these phone calls and these requests from parents, we just offered a broad stroke policy that said everyone can leave if a form is signed. That's what's happened. That's what Albemarle County Public Schools are telling parents. I will push back on the Judah narrative that he just said, and I will push back on the Albemarle County Public School broad stroke policy. You can say no one can leave for lunch. We don't care if you're saying leave for lunch. If a parent calls in and says, I want little Johnny and little Susie to be able to leave for their lunch break to eat, the response could be no.
I don't believe that's an option for them, though.
How do you know that? If the parent says to the principal's office that I want little Johnny or little Susie to be able to drive their car to school and park it at any parking space they want, the school can say no. If the parent says to the front office, I want little Johnny or little Susie to miss the first period of class every single day, and that's what I want, and I don't want you to call them late or truant, the school can say no. If the parent says, I want little Johnny or little Susie to not take any tests or quizzes anymore, and it's me, the parent, that's saying or demanding that, the school could say, no, what are you talking about? If the parents say, I don't want little Johnny or little Susie to do physical education or PE because they feel uncomfortable climbing a rope or doing the sit and reach or running the mile, the school can say no. I don't buy that the school cannot say no to parents. I don't buy it.
That's not what anyone said. That's not what I said.
Make your argument.
I'm just going based on the information that we received, which states that the school says if a parent requests a student be able to leave for lunch period or for whatever, that they can't stop them.
The school can say no.
Okay.
Why can't the school say no? Why can't the school say, there's been kids leaving the school that have been abusing drugs, and we have a new policy, kids can't leave for lunch?
Okay.
How is that any different than the policy that says kids have to show up to school on this time and school's over at this time?
Do we really want to dive into how those are very different things?
Right now, parents have said to us that the school system is using a broad stroke decision. Anyone, regardless of age, can leave for lunch. And they're saying this because of the following specific reason. We got so bombarded by kids having their parents demand that they could leave for lunch, we could not manage it. So we're now letting everyone leave for lunch if they get a waiver signed. That is bogus in my book. A 9th grader, a 10th grader, an 11th grader, give it a senior privilege to do it. But an underclassman leaving for lunch is...
I agree with you there.
Asking for trouble. Just like my parents used to say, nothing good happens after midnight. What do you think is going to happen when you give a 9th grader, a 10th grader, and an 11th grader an hour to do whatever they want in the middle of the school day with no accountability?
I don't think it's a good thing.
I find the excuse extremely lame from ACPS. Their excuse is we got bombarded by so many requests that instead of managing them, we just allowed everyone to leave. That's basically allowing
That's not really true, though.
That is true. I'm reading verbatim from her Facebook message.
Doesn't it say, and of course this is secondhand information, but does it not say that if a parent calls the office and makes this request, the school has to let the student go?
And I don't believe that.
Okay. Well,
don't believe that.
Until we get an actual ruling.
If a parent calls the office and says, I don't want my kid taking geometry class, how is that different, Judah?
You're not arguing in good faith right now.
How am I not arguing in good faith? You're basically saying the school is basically making this call. Parents called the principal's office and said, we don't want our kids staying in the cafeteria. And the school bent over backwards and let the kids leave, right?
You're using... I don't know, you're saying they bent over backwards?
Okay, I'll rephrase. According to the comments we've gotten from moms who have signed the waivers, parents called the principal's office and said, we want our kids to leave for lunch and not eat lunch in the cafeteria. And so many parents called the principal's office that the school just said, we can't manage this. So now we gave all kids this privilege if they have a signed waiver, right?
Essentially.
That's it, verbatim. What is going to keep then the parent from saying, I want to sign a waiver and say, I don't want my kids taking geometry class, health, physical education, or history, or follow any other rule that we don't like? It's ACPS allowing the chickens to
run the roost?
Yeah. Exactly. And we're surprised there's trouble. 30 minutes into the broadcast. Kate Sharps, when did it become such a long period of time for lunch? When I was a kid, we had 20 or 25 minutes. That's what I remember as well. Mm-hmm. Gary Palmer, Logan Wells Kalelo, James Watson, thank you for watching the program. Jessica Wingfield Lilly, she has comments. Not all the high schools allow the kids to leave during lunch either. I would really love to hear I really want this specific intel from parents that are watching the program. Can Western Albemarle High School 9th, 10th, and 11th graders leave for lunch with a signed waiver? Because Monticello 9th, 10th, and 11th graders can leave lunch for the signed waiver. Suzanne Daly says, these kids are minors. She says only students who are 18 plus should be able to leave unless a parent physically checks them out of school. This is a liability. The school is responsible for kids during the day, and if they are leaving the premises, the school cannot monitor or control what happens to them. Suzanne Daly, a voice of reason right there.
I would tend to agree.
A voice of reason, Suzanne Daly. We're surprised that kids are ODing during school hours. Jessica Lilly, and the question of the week from ACPS this week is, should they discontinue use of backpacks because of gun violence? Is that what we should be focused on currently? She's sarcasm there. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Yep. I will bet you $100. I'll bet you $500 that there's not a private school in Albemarle County or the city of Charlottesville that will allow a 9th grader to leave for lunch every day. Not a single one. And if anyone made that request of the private school, they would say, "Are you kidding me?" Absolutely not. I really would like to know if Western Albemarle High School offers ninth graders the ability to do this. All right, other topics I need to get to. That's the first thing that we should be asking our school board to change and Matthew Haas to change. First thing, not backpacks in schools. How are we allowing minors to leave school? All right, next topic. It's an important one. What's the headline? Judah Wickhauer, let's put it on screen.
Here you go. CRHA establishing fair market rents for 2025.
I'm curious of your take on this. Charlottesville Redevelopment and Housing Authority. I think Judah Wickhauer does a fantastic job of offering counter perspective on the show. Sometimes I can be combative. It's just my nature. I don't intend to be combative with him. I value his perspective significantly. Here are the fair market rents for the Charlottesville Redevelopment and Housing Authority for 2025. It's an action item on its agenda. You ready for this? A one-bedroom, no, first let's talk about a studio apartment. A studio apartment, the fair market rent for 2025, $1,544. A one-bedroom, $1,635. A two-bedroom, $1,901 for a two-bedroom. A three-bedroom, $2,370. A four-bedroom, $2,883. A five-bedroom, $3,315. It's important to highlight this. The CRHA and Sean Tubbs has got great reporting on this. A lot of these rents are subsidized through the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD, and its voucher program. So while it has rents for a one-bedroom at $1,635 a month, a two-bedroom at $1,901 a month, a three-bedroom at $2,370 a month, a four-bedroom at $2,883 a month, and a five-bedroom at $3,315 a month, these are subsidized by vouchers. And CRHA administers 681 vouchers in total. I'm so curious of your take on this, because I think my take may surprise you. CRHA putting a three-bedroom at fair market rent of $2,370 a month.
These do seem fairly elevated, especially a studio for $1,500.
$1,544.
Yeah, and so you're saying that that by them setting prices, they're essentially creating comps in the city for what
they're setting the market.
Yeah.
Keep going.
And then they're obviously applying vouchers, and I'm sure other discounts as well, depending on the people that end up in some of these places. They'll get housing assistance. So, I mean, are these too high? Are these setting the example for the rest of Charlottesville?
John Blair, I'm going to get to your comments on LinkedIn. Deep Throw, I'm going to get to your comments on Twitter. The CRHA is setting the rental prices, or should I use comps, for much of the area. You know what's intriguing? I highlighted this to start the program. The Miller organization, the holding company of all our subsidiaries here, VMV Brands, I Love CVille Real Estate, Charlottesville Business Brokers, Blue Ridge Venture Fund, the executive offices we have, 24 of them. How we make our main source of income is renting real estate, office and residential.
Yeah.
Some of it's listed at ilovecvillerealestate.com. Not all of it is. One of our pieces of property is a three-bedroom, two-bath condominium. The three-bedroom, two-bath condominium has monthly rent. It's managed by a property manager locally. I don't manage this particular piece of property. This piece of property has monthly rent for a 3-bedroom, 2-bath at $2,350 a month. She picked the monthly rent, the property manager.
Yeah.
The CRHA suggestion for a 3-bedroom is
$20 over.
$2,370 a month. She picked a price point that was $20 less a month than what CRHA is suggesting the rent should be for a 3-bedroom.
Yeah.
We have organizations like CRHA, the Charlottesville Redevelopment and Housing Authority, like Habitat for Humanity, like Piedmont Housing Alliance, that own vast portfolios of real estate. CRHA is one of the most significant holders of real estate in the city of Charlottesville, rental real estate. Piedmont Housing Alliance and Habitat for Humanity are developers of real estate. Legitimately, they're developing the Carlton Mobile Home Park with a bridge loan from the city. These organizations are screaming about housing affordability. They're saying there is no affordability. They're screaming affordability in Charlottesville when it comes to housing is causing the community to gentrify rapidly and quickly. Yet the CRHA is establishing rents and comparables for other private owners of real estate in the community. I am very curious after reading Sean Tubbs' reporting if my property manager for this 3-bedroom, 2-bath that has no debt on it, no mortgage on it, if she utilizes this kind of data and metrics to set the rent for our condo.
Yeah.
It just, you unpack it with however you wish.
So when it's, when it's individuals, when it's programs, when it's when it's people using a program that is essentially,
he's talking about third-party software that helps real estate owners determine the monthly rent of their holdings.
Yeah, often by coordinating around an area.
It's the same way that hotels set rents for their hotel rooms.
Yeah.
And no difference than using, is it Travelocity?
How is that no different?
Hotels and availability on hotel rooms, you can search a travel internet site that aggregates prices together. And some folks make the argument that these third-party softwares, all they're doing is driving up rents for their clients that pump their holdings, their hotel rooms, their apartments, their housing into the software to find values or tenants or room renters.
Okay.
Deep Throat has commentary here. He says, I don't trust that CRHA is able to do this calculation properly, by the way. And they definitely have every incentive to boost this number because vouchers can only be applied for housing that costs less than FMR. So to get HUD money and make the vouchers easier to use, CRHA gooses the numbers higher. Seems plausible to me.
Oof.
Put that in perspective.
Well, where we've spoken in the past about those uses of software that set the price across a market because enough people are using them that it's essentially using its own data, driving prices for properties around an entire area. This is the Charlottesville. The CRHA basically doing the same thing, setting prices that eventually other people will use.
I'll give you the comments from Deep Throat again. Think about this, ladies and gentlemen. I don't trust that CRHA is able to do this calculation properly. And they definitely have every incentive to boost the fair market rent number because vouchers can only be applied for with housing that costs less than fair market rent. So to get HUD money and make the vouchers easier to use, CRHA can goose the numbers higher. That seems plausible to me.
But it still has to be under fair market value. So essentially, what I'm hearing is that they're essentially getting the area to push rents higher so that what they have set on their properties doesn't have to be so low that it doesn't work, and it can be high enough that there's a good chance they're going to get the voucher. Is that what I'm hearing?
Viewers and listeners, what are your thoughts? Deep Throat. It is not about actual rents. I ask this question of the viewer and listener. He says it's about CRHA's calculation. Rents are not really easily available public data. I ask the viewers and listeners this question. If the Redevelopment and Housing Authority sets rents at this level, won't the onesies and twosies and threesies and foursies landlords follow suit? And then I'll ask a follow-up question. If rents are set at this level to secure subsidy on the back end, are they not a driver of the unaffordability in the community, especially as one of the largest rental managers of real estate in the community?
Yeah.
Think about that.
Mm-hmm. It's kind of crazy.
I would challenge anyone in this community to find a real estate portfolio that is as vast as CRHA's. There's a few out there, but only a few.
Mm-hmm.
Comments coming in via LinkedIn. I asked you in the beginning of the show, which sign is older than the Charlottesville sanitary supply sign that's 70 years old? John Blair says, the old Virginia Fried Chicken sign by Wayside Fried Chicken is older. He said, also in 1926, the Virginia Supreme Court upheld school division regulations that prohibited children from leaving school to eat lunch at home. This case is Flory versus Smith. The issue is literally 98 years old. And he says, all the school division has to do is adopt a policy that does not permit students to leave school grounds for lunch. Bingo. Exactly what I said.
Fair enough. That's what I like to hear.
Exactly what I said. But Monticello High School is choosing instead to choose not to manage the bombardment of requests from parents with its principal's office by saying, oh my God, the phone's ringing too much. The inbox is too cluttered with messages. We need to just give all students the opportunity, if they get a waiver sign, that they can leave school grounds during lunch. Comments are coming in. Some parents are saying otherwise. I appreciate that. Chelsea Dana Naylor on I Love CVille Facebook. She says, my kids leave for lunch at Monticello High School when she wants to. I signed the form. She just went to Taco Bell today. She did not do any drugs. I like that she can leave for lunch. It gives her a break from the day to even sit in her car and relax if she wants to. She says, in response to Jessica Whitfield Lilly, Jessica says this, I agree, Chelsea. They are doing the drugs at school regardless if they are leaving for lunch or not. Chelsea says, exactly, there's not a way to prevent it, unfortunately. If there was addiction, it wouldn't be a thing anymore. I would respond, and I appreciate all the folks offering commentary on this. From my standpoint, if a school knows that students are leaving for lunch and using that period and time away from school to abuse drugs and then returns to school, perhaps the privilege should be revoked across the board. When I was on a team, when I played travel soccer, year-round travel soccer, Williamsburg Soccer Club. One of the hardest things you're ever going to do as a parent is when your kid says, I want to be on a travel soccer team or a travel sports team that does it year-round. You have practice on 2 or 3 days a week, and then your weekends are literally lost to traveling 2 to 3 hours one way to play a soccer game and 2 to 3 hours the other way to get home. This team was a competitive team of athletes that played collegiately soccer. If someone on the team did not uphold his responsibility for the team, it wasn't that individual that suffered alone. The entire team suffered. If me as a center midfielder did not do what I was supposed to do with moving the ball from the defense to the strikers, I had to run suicide sprints in practice, the next practice, and so did everyone else on the team. If someone showed up late for practice, it wasn't the person who showed up late for practice that ran the suicides or did the wall sits, the push-ups, and the sit-ups. The entire team did the suicides, wall sits, and the push-ups. If there's 10th graders, 11th graders, seniors, and 9th graders abusing a privilege, everyone should suffer. Not just those that abuse the privilege. And until the behavior is reined in, I don't see how the privilege should be allowed. My 2 cents. I know parents are going to disagree with me on that. What's the next topic, Judah Wickower?
Next up, we have the first meeting in 6 years for Albemarle County and CVille planners.
I found this. This was also out of Sean Tubbs' most recent newsletter. Sean Tubbs is doing great work with the Charlottesville Substack. Mm-hmm. The Albemarle County Planning Commission and the Charlottesville Planning Commission will meet for the first time in 6 years tomorrow. And they're going to have a philosophical conversation about how land use planning can help the community adapt to climate change and reduce greenhouse gas emission. Instead of having a philosophical conversation on climate change and greenhouse gas emission reduction, how about we just have a conversation? How about we just have conversations like this? There's the Charlottesville Area Transit, a bus system that runs in Charlottesville and Albemarle County. What's the best way to plan to optimize transit? Mm-hmm. What's the best way to plan density and growth and roads and infrastructure, water, utilities, quality of life? The fact that planning commissioners, the people that do the planning for their jurisdictions, have not met for 6 years, and there are jurisdictions that are adjacent to each other, is absurd. Mm-hmm. It's absurd.
And Sean points out that in some ways, for instance, coordinating individual projects that are right on the border.
Has anyone noticed the complaints that have happened on the east side of town with Interstate 64, Pantops, and the bypass by Keswick and coming down Freebridge? Traffic over the last month has been so snarled on 64 and the bypass coming down Pantops through the Freebridge that folks are so late to work or to school because they're just sitting in traffic. Mm-hmm. We have so many indications in this community of Albemarle County and the city of Charlottesville not working seamlessly together. And the fact that the planning commissioners have not had a meeting in 6 years is a microcosm of so much piss poor communication, piss poor project management, infrastructure management, transportation management, density management, and quality of life improvement. You give me a line of business or a silo of business or a niche of business where the CEOs or the decision makers go 6 years without meeting. And I'll give you a niche or a silo of business that isn't in business for that much longer.
Yeah.
6 years. And here Charlottesville's putting out a new zoning ordinance. And here Albemarle County is percolating rent control.
And saying we're not going to add to the 5%.
Expand the development area. Yeah. I don't think the development area should be expanded by Albemarle County.
You don't
the real
think it should?
estate agents that listen to this program, Neil Williamson disagrees with me on this. The real estate agents certainly disagree with me. I do not think we should expand the development area in Albemarle County. It's 5% right now. Until that 5% is maximized, and until we start prioritizing things like schools and roads and infrastructure, we should not add more density in housing and rooftops. In the organizations like Livable Charlottesville, Stephen Johnson and Matthew Gillikin's group that keep screaming housing, 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 we want more housing and then we'll figure out the infrastructure later, I push back on them and say, stop talking. We have to get kids out of learning in trailers. They're learning in trailers right now at Western, at Monticello, at Albemarle High School, at Charlottesville High School. And until students get out of educational villages, educational huts, learning huts, they're trailers, folks. Until we get them out of trailers, until we have enough buildings for kids to learn in classrooms where classroom sizes are not beyond saturated, we should say put more housing out there for more people to live in our community. Until someone can go from Keswick to Charlottesville without waiting in traffic for 55 minutes or 1 hour one way, we should add more people to the community. If you do, you're going to become Fredericksburg or Northern Virginia. Fredericksburg or Northern Virginia. Sit in that traffic and see what it does to quality of life and see what it does to morale. Every day. Next headline, please.
Next up, we are back to the oldest signs in Charlottesville.
I don't have this answer, and I'm hoping the viewers and listeners can help me out.
Yeah, no doubt.
The Charlottesville Sanitary Supply sign is 70 years old on East High Street. John Vermillion, president of Charlottesville Sanitary Supply, in studio tomorrow. Going to be a fantastic interview. John Blair said the wayside sign. How old is the wayside sign? That's a great question from John Blair. Can you figure that out? I don't know how we would be able to figure that out. Give me a sign in Charlottesville, a sign that is 70 years older or more. Wait till you hear the history of the sign tomorrow. Wait till you hear from John what it's like to run a business for 60 years in Charlottesville City. From the Chamber of Commerce Small Business Person of the Year. I'm curious of the Paramount sign. I'm curious of the Miller's sign. I think wasn't Miller's a drugstore before it became a bar?
I don't know the answer to that.
I want to know what sign in the city of Charlottesville is older than 70 years old. Have that sincere question.
Does it have to be a freestanding sign, or are we talking about just the sign on the front of a building?
Any sign for me.
Any sign?
Yeah. Wahoo 89 in Tennessee. Why are we negotiating with minors? They are minors for a reason. The adults are supposed to be in charge, not the kids. Leaving for lunch should be a privilege for seniors. Give me a sign in the city of Charlottesville that's older than 70 years old. I sincerely want to know that question. I love Charlottesville history. What's the next headline? Two quick ones for you before we go. The governor of West Virginia and has Carter Bank and Trust in a tight spot. Carter Bank and Trust said last week, this according to Cardinal News, that the amount of interest income it has lost from past due loans owed by West Virginia Governor Jim Justice and his family has risen to $57.2 million. $57.2 million. That's up $8.8 million since last quarter. The Martinsville-based bank said it had missed out on $48.4 million in total interest income since mid-2023, when it placed a Justice loan portfolio totaling more than $300 million in non-accrual status. Non-accrual status is when loans don't earn interest because payments are not made. You got the governor of West Virginia owing a Martinsville bank $57.2 million just in interest.
Mm-hmm. And I believe he's running for something, isn't he?
Is it Senate? He's the governor of West Virginia. He's got to be running for U.S. Senate. Jim Justice seeks the U.S. Senate seat being vacated by former Democrat, your boy, Joe Manchin.
My boy.
It's not your boy. The Justice family companies own a variety of coal, agricultural, hospitality businesses in West Virginia, and North Carolina, including a personal favorite of our family, the Greenbrier Resort. I'll close with this topic as my 1:30 meeting is waiting in the hallway. Excited to have a conversation with Chris Kabash about real estate. I want you, the viewer and listener, to ask yourself this question. Virginia football has lost 3 straight games, and they were just humiliated by North Carolina in the South's oldest rivalry, a game that saw a UVA player fight with coaches to the point where Tony Elliott said, you have to get off the sideline and head into the locker room. Got into a verbal altercation with the coaching staff. We'll talk about it tomorrow on the Jerry and Jerry Show at 10:15 a.m. If Tony Elliott's football program loses 7 straight games, they've lost 3 right now, there's 4 games left. 3 of those 4 games are against ranked opponents, and the last one's against Virginia Tech and Blacksburg. If they lose 7 straight games, knowing the football team is losing $1 million per home game, how secure is the head coach's job? He's making more than $4 million a year. In his first season, he won 3 games. In his second season, he's won 3 games. And right now, on paper, it would suggest that it's 4 games won in his third season. That would mean a total of 10 wins in 3 years, more than $4 million of earned income in a program that's losing $1 million per home football game. Apathy and morale at an all-time low with this program. I'll say it once, I'll say it again. I think the athletic director at the University of Virginia, Carla Williams, is going to have 2 national coaching searches for her 2 most prominent teams in the department, men's basketball and football. It's the Monday edition of the I Love CVille Show. Thank you for listening.